Personally, I really like Phoenix 200. I think it's a film that has a lot of character. When people say that they're looking for the film look, rather than Portra or Kodak Gold, honestly I think Phoenix is really what they're looking for. The high contrast definitely makes it difficult to shoot, but with that added halation, it really gives it a unique look that some people don't have a taste for. But as I said before, personally I really like it. And today what we're going to be doing is trying to get some scans out of it. Typical color negative film has an orange base layer, and because of this, most film scanners have their red, green, and blue channels calibrated to account for this. Phoenix, on the other hand, has a purple base layer, and because of this, those pre-calibrations that are done to film scanners to account for the orange base layer get completely messed up when you go to scan this stuff. So what Harman did to account for this is they created a document. This document details what settings film labs should change on their scanners to account for the different colored base layer. The problem is that it doesn't seem to always work. Here are some scans that I got back from the lab. You can see that the scans are very high contrast and the colors are completely wrong. So today what I'm going to show you is instead how to home scan Phoenix. Today the scanner we'll be using is the Epson V600. The software that I'll be using is Silverfast AI Studio 9. The first thing we'll want to do is make sure that we're in transparency, negative, and 48-bit HDR RAW mode. Now, go ahead and click pre-scan. Once your pre-scan's done, you can try going and clicking frame, find frames, film strip 35mm. As you see here, Silverfast was able to identify the frames on the film strip. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expand my frames so I can get the sprocket holes and the writing on the film strip. Alright, we're going to select frame 1, and we're going to go in here to make sure that our settings are what we want them to be. I'm going to go ahead and set my PPI to 3200. Go ahead and make sure your file format is DNG, and that your path is set where you want it to be. Now that we have our settings done on the first frame, go Frame, Copy Settings to all frames. Then go ahead and click Batch Scan, and Export. Alright, now that our scans are done, let's import them into Lightroom. Alright, now we have our negatives here in Lightroom, so let's select our first one, and then go ahead and click Ctrl-N to activate Negative Lab Pro. If you don't have Negative Lab Pro, I would strongly suggest picking it up. It's an awesome plugin for Lightroom, and it gives great results for converting from negative to positive images. Because I went ahead and scanned the sprocket holes, I have my border buffer set to 20%. Now I'm going to click Convert 1 Negative. I'm going to bring down the lights a bit on my image, and I'll bring up the darks a bit as well, just to help alleviate some of that contrast. Now go ahead and click Apply. Alright, I went ahead and converted all my other negatives, and then removed the originals, so I'm just left with the positive TIFF files. If we go ahead and compare it with the lab scans that I got, you can already immediately tell how much better these scans are. I do unfortunately have some small lines going through them. It looks like some dust might have been in the calibration area on my scanner, so I'll have to clean that off, but for right now, this is fine. Honestly, with the way that these scans are right now, I'd be happy with them, but let's go ahead and edit them in Lightroom as well to see what we can bring out. This one right here would be a good candidate. You can tell that the highlights are pretty overextended, and the shadows are fairly crushed. Let's try bringing those up. So if I bring up my shadows, and I bring down my highlights, look how much more detail there is left in the image. The image does look a little bit flat now, so I'm going to increase the whites just a bit, just before I feel like I'm going to get some clipping. I'm noticing though that the shadows are pretty red, so let's go and adjust for that. If we come down here into the color grading area, we can go into the shadows and cool them down. Alright, honestly, that's looking really good. Alright, let's compare our final result to the lab scan. Yeah, honestly, that's gonna be a yikes for me. You can tell that the sky is super noisy, and the shadows are completely crushed, not to mention the colors are just completely wrong. Now normally I would go into this scan and fix it, but unfortunately these are 8-bit JPEG files, so there's not a whole lot of latitude here for me to make adjustments. I can start by cooling down the image a bit, and then increasing the shadows. If I bring down the highlights as well, and then my last step is probably going to be to come down here and adjust the shadows because they're looking a little bit green. Might bring the shadows up just a bit more, bring a little bit of purple into the overall image. 21's a bit too much, let's go with 15. Remove that dust up there. Alright, let's go ahead and do a final comparison. As you can see, even with the changes I was able to make, the Epson scan is a lot better. We have way less noise up here in the sky, and the highlights aren't nearly as clipped. Plus, the colors are still more accurate because we have more color data available to us. Here's another final comparison. Honestly, the colors and the dynamic range are the two big factors here. Not to mention, all that noise in the sky is a complete deal breaker for me personally. So yeah, that's how I go about scanning my Harman Phoenix. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and like always, I'll see you in the next video.